Good evening. Goodbye Forever by Ngak'chang Rinpoche, Volume 2, Chapter 23, Part 2. In this troubled time, the terma of Yongle Mingyo Dorje was very important for the Kagyu. Its practice strengthened the Kagyu lineages in Kham, enabling practitioners to turn back enemies and bring peace. This is why this terma did not become extinct. Terton Mingyo Dorje Namchur terma's cycle revealing, Gyalwa Karmapa commented. Did you know he emanation of Shubu Palgi Senge? Yes, Rinpoche. Shubu Palgi Senge was one of the ministers of Trisong Detsen and one of the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche. Good. Shubu Palgi Senge meaning glorious lion from Shudbu, accomplishment attaining through Purba and Mamo. Ha! He boulders splitting and river with Purba dividing. Maybe you are also with Purba similar performing, he laughed. Yongle Mingyo Dorje's Longku form is Chana Dorje, embodiment Buddha's power, strength and ability. He incarnated as Shakyamuni Buddha's disciple, Niruddha, and he had the most power of miracles among the disciples. In Tibet, as well as Shudbu Palgi Senge, he was Mutri Tsempo, the eldest son of King Trisong Detsen, the Dharma ruler prince, who was one of the 25 disciples. Then he was Rigzin Goki Dem Truchan, who appeared as one of the regents of Padmasambhava. In the centre of Tibet and 4 directions there were tertons bearing the name Lingpa, and each had the nature of the 5 Buddha families. Rigzin Goki Dem Truchan was the central terton. As to those tertons in the 4 intermediate directions, there was Terchen Dorje Lingpa in the east, Pema Lingpa in the west, and Jigpo Lingpa, lord of the intermediate directions. He was also Rinchen Puntsog and Rigzin Jatson Yingpo. Of the incarnations of the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche, there were 21 major tertons with the name Nuden, and the first incarnation of Yongle Mingyo Dorje was among them, because the 10th Karmapa, Chögyam Dorje, gave him the name Rigzin Mingyo Dorje Drakpo Nuden Tsal. 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche naming possible? I am not confident, Rinpoche, but I can try. Yeshit Sogyo, Mandarava, but maybe she was not one of the 25 because she never went to Tibet. Yes, but still disciple. Trisong Detsen, Drime Shenyen, Bago Varatsana, and of course Shubu Palgi Senge, Palgi Yeshé, Palgi Tsengye, Odren Palgi Wangchuk. There are many more, but I must think for a moment. Gyalwa Karmapa smiled at me as I sat thinking. There were a few names that came to mind, but I wanted to gather at least a dozen before I commenced. Yes, Kyechung Lotsa, who communicated with the birds of the air. Oh, yeah, Gyalwa Karmapa laughed. This one twice meeting. Already Düd'jom Rinpoche meeting. Kyabjé Düd'jom Rinpoche is incarnation of Kyechung Lotsa. But later one other Lama meeting, who also same line coming. This was extraordinary by nature of being ordinary, or by being delivered in such a matter-of-fact way. There were people who had existed for centuries, or for 2,500 years, and they crisscrossed through time like a kaleidoscopic pageant of boundlessly beneficial beauty. Every moment in every place on the earth was a possible intersection. Meeting Papa Legba at the crossroads had come to nothing, but here I was at a multi-dimensional crossroads that was vast and intricate. That Ngakpa Chögyam was part of this intricacy was almost intellectually incomprehensible. There was a sensation. There was an appearance of recognition, but it was entirely elusive. It seemed that it would be a serious error of judgment to build anything on such feelings of recognition. If anything was to shape itself into a comprehensible stream, it would happen of itself or not. To attempt to concretize anything in this area of experience would lead merely to fatuous fantasies. Ngak'chang Rinpoche Zoru, who drew water out of rock. Sogpo Lapal, who was a great blacksmith yogi. Ma Rinchen Chog was able to live by eating rock. Of course, there was Nubchen Sangye Yeshe, who saved the Ngak'chang Rinpoche by displaying the apparition of a scorpion 9 times the size of a yak above the head of King Langdama. Gyalwa Karmapa laughed about this and nodded with evident pleasure. Then, I continued, Kunchog Jungne, Nub Namkai Nyingpo, who flew in the sky and vanished into the sky on his death. Yudra Nyingpo, who was a master of Dzogchen Semde. Nanam Zhang Yeshe De was a Purba master who had the Siddhi of flight, and then I think that is all I can remember, Rinpoche. Ah, yes, there was the brother, or father, some say, of Yeshe Tsogyal, whose name was Karchen Palgi Wangchuk. Oh, yeah, Gyalwa Karmapa smiled. Maybe this one also meeting. Realization through Dorje Purba attaining. Very great Lama. Very powerful. Maybe in Bhutan finding. You must one day Bhutan travelling. Maybe there meeting possible. More Siddhas coming? The last one who comes to mind is Lalung Palgi Dorje. It is strange that I thought of him last, because I know more about him than the others. Lalung Palgi Dorje, Gyalwa Karmapa grinned. Born in Drumto Gungmoche, north of River Kichu, and Lalung was his clan name. Yeah, some also born in Lodrak in Lalung, saying. Gyalwa Karmapa nodded, as if weighing up different ways of concerning the matter. Some family named Taknya Zhang also saying. But anyway, he was a warrior and China fighting, but disillusion becoming and religion needing. So what next knowing? Lalung Palgi Dorje went to Samye, I launched in again, and was given monastic ordination by Drime Shenyen. Yeah, Gyalwa Karmapa smiled, but later Ngakpa becoming. Otherwise droll for Langdama not possible performing. He accompanied by brother Rabcho Wangpo Tsumpa Pelyang. Then many empowerments from Guru Rinpoche receiving. Gyalwa Karmapa observed me silently in a beneficent manner, but it seemed obvious that he wanted me to say more. He received the Dzogchen Semde and Dzogchen Longde from Drime Shenyen and gave these transmissions to Ngak'chang Rinpoche Zhonu. So Lalung Palgi Dorje practiced in Dribki Kamo Valley, where he attained the ability to pass freely through rocks and fly from mountain to mountain. Of course, as you said, Rinpoche, he liberated Langdama through the rite of Drol with a bow and arrow. Oh, yeah. Laung Pyalgi Dorje, very powerful. Yeah, he continued with a woeful shake of his head. This Langdama, this is Tri Udumsen. Very bad actions making. Suddenly I was aware of an aspect of Gyalwa Karmapa I had not witnessed before. It was as if night had fallen. It didn't become darker, so night falling didn't represent anything in the world of my ordinary senses. Those were merely words I used at the time to describe something that occurred. It was momentary, however, so I had no time to make sense of the impression. Then suddenly the room seemed full of light again, even though nothing had changed. So, now, with Lalung Palgi Dorje, explanation continuing. Lalung Palgi Dorje was living in a cave called Dragyerpa when he became aware, through clairvoyance, that Langdama was persecuting Buddhism. He decided immediately that it was absolutely necessary to save religion. So he performed Drol for Langdama, and Langdama died. Gyalwa Karmapa paused for a moment. You know Drol meaning? Yes, Rinpoche. The rite of physical dispatchment for someone whose life is causing great harm to others, and great harm also to themselves. It gives an opportunity for a more positive rebirth. Gyalwa Karmapa nodded with a smile, when what I had answered had been translated, and asked, Now more saying? Yes, Rinpoche. Through dispatchment by Drol, Langdama was prevented from accumulating the terrible negative imprints in harming Buddhism. Lalung Palgi Dorje performed Drol for Langdama whilst engaged in Ngak'chang, and this he accomplished with a bow and arrow that he'd concealed in the wide sleeves of his Ngak'chang costume. He then fled on a white horse, or rather a white horse he stained black with charcoal. He wore reversible costume too. It was white on one side and black on the other. Then, crossing the river in the direction of his escape, his horse was washed clean of the charcoal, and Lalung Palgi Dorje reversed his costume to display the white side. By this means he escaped undetected, as no one was looking for a white-robed rider on a white horse. That is all I know, other than that he manifested rainbow body. Gyalwa Karmapa beamed at me and added, Yat, son, very well remembering. Now more coming, so many carefully notes writing. His incarnations were Pema Norbu, Chakri Rigzin Nima Drakpa, and the Zomang Trungpa Tulkus. Important incarnation also in Bhutan coming. At this point, Gyalwa Karmapa ceased speaking audibly. He did not whisper, and his lips did not move, but I was aware that he was continuing to communicate. I seemed to be experiencing transmission, almost as I had experienced it with Aro Lingma, when I understood but didn't understand what I had understood. That had also occurred with Kyabjé Düd'jom Rinpoche. There was a felt sensation of knowingness, but no language with which to express it. Usually when silences occurred with Lamas, I took it as the sign that I should leave. Ngak'chang Rinpoche, however, was also sitting, obviously in meditation, so I simply sat. To rest non-conceptually was extremely simple in that setting, with Gyalwa Karmapa and Ngak'chang Rinpoche. There was a sudden yet peaceful widening of Gyalwa Karmapa's eyes. There was a sense of intense joy in him as he recommenced his discourse. Terton Drukdra Dorje, incarnation of Lalung Palgi Dorje in Bhutan. Then he conferred with Ngak'chang Rinpoche for a while, and Ngak'chang Rinpoche explained, His Holiness says, dates of birth and passing not knowing, but 18th century living. Maybe you must ask and find out when you are Nepal again travelling. Then, when possible, must Bhutan going. Much expense, so not soon. Maybe when my age coming. He looked pensive and then revised his statement. No, maybe older. Maybe after full cycle of years reaching, but not so long after. Terton Drukdra Dorje, a major Terton who prophesied the birth and life of the fourth king of Bhutan. His prophecy was made when he was in retreat in the mountains between Bhutan and Tibet. Guru Rinpoche appeared to him in person and gave voice to the prophecy. Terton Drukdra Dorje, as prophesied by Guru Rinpoche, travelled through Chumapug, Paro, Tamdrinye, and Selungne, Timpu, Pasang, Amanye, Chukka, and many miraculous places in Bhutan. He propagated Vajrayana by revealing many different terma and communicating opportune prophecies for the great benefit of Bhutan. Gyalwa Karmapa said that he knew nothing of the incarnation of Terton Drukdra Dorje, other than that he was a Terton. He then said that he had heard of no incarnation as yet of this Terton, but that I might come to hear of him if I went to Bhutan. I might even meet him if I lived long enough. This you must remembering, and Bhutan going. Maybe not soon, maybe when older, maybe when students having. Then much value for Vajrayana lineage coming, so always remembering. Now nothing more knowing and nothing more saying possible. I'd been taking notes all the way through, but I had to work quite hard with what followed. Gyalwa Karmapa began, Then Denmark Semang fast writing, of all disciples most skilled. Here Gyalwa Karmapa laughed heartily. Like Ngakpa Chögyam must very fast writing. Denmark Semang's style of calligraphy has continued to the present day. Having received transmission from Padmasambhava, he achieved perfect recall of all teachings. He was the scribe who wrote down many termas, including the 8 great druktabs of the Nyingma tradition. Then Nanam Dorje Düd'jom, who was one of Trisong Detsen's ministers, was sent to Nepal to invite Padmasambhava to Tibet. He could fly with the speed of the wind and pass through solid rock. Rigsing Godam and Leirab Lingpa were amongst his incarnations. This Leirab Lingpa is also called Terton Sogyal. Gyalwa Karmapa shook his head at that point and said, One very good tulku coming, in Tibet living. Jigme Puntsog Jungne Rinpoche was great Terton, many termas discovering. Also, one other Terton Sogyal tulku in Bhutan coming, name Gendun Rinchen Rinpoche. Great Lama, great meditator and scholar. There now one young one coming, but not real incarnation of Terton Sogyal. No study, no retreat, only name Sogyal having. only ordinary schools going. No need more speaking. Maybe never Sogya Laka meeting. Maybe better not meeting. Gyalwa Karmapa talked for a little about Jigme Puntsog Jungne Rinpoche and Gendun Rinchen Rinpoche, but told me I was not likely to meet them unless I went to Tibet or Bhutan. Lasum Gyalwa Changchub was one of the first 7 Tibetans to receive full ordination as a monk by Shantarakshita. He visited India several times and translated many texts. He attained the siddhi of flight through the sky. Rigzin Kunzang Sherab, the founder of Palyul in Kham, is one of his incarnations. Nanlam Gyalwa Chögyam attained accomplishment through Tamdran and later incarnated as the first Karmapa. He was born into the Nanyam clan. It is said that he kept his vows with perfect purity. He practiced in solitude and reached realization. As well as the Karmapa tulkus, he has incarnations in the Nyingma tradition, such as Chagdud Tulku Rinpoche and Tulku Sangnak Rinpoche. Dre Gyalwai Ludro was an attendant of Trisong Detsen, who also became one of the first Tibetans to take ordination. He became a great translator and attained accomplishment after receiving transmission from Hunkara in India. He lived to a very great age. Kawa Paltseg made important contributions to the Nyingma Gyubum. He was also among the first 7 Tibetan monks ordained by Shantarakshita. Ba Yeshé was a translator and scribe who transcribed the termas of Guru Rinpoche. He was an accomplished yogi, able to fly like a bird in the sky. Nyang Tingzin Zangpo attained the rainbow body of great transference. In the Vima Nyingtig lineage, it is written that he invited Drime Shenyen to teach in Tibet. He was a court Lama during the reigns of Trisong Detsen, Tride Songtsen, and Tri Raupachan. So, anyway, Yongle Mingyo Dorje, learned and highly accomplished master becoming, and then later life Mahasiddha lifestyle following. Gyalwa Karmapa suddenly laughed. Maybe Chögyam also Mahasiddha becoming. This was such a funny statement. Ngak'chang Rinpoche and I also started laughing. The laughter was unusual, however. It created a highly relaxed atmosphere. Maybe Gyalwa Karmapa had seen that I had grown somewhat tense from concentrated note-taking. Maybe he had knowledge of what had occurred the last time I had come to Samiling. That was a strange thought. I had the strong sense in which Gyalwa Karmapa was similar to Kyabjé Düd'jom Rinpoche in being able to see into me and know my history. To say someone could become a Mahasiddha has various meanings. One is the epitome of praise. Another is derogatory. Lamas with no realization, who acted in a wild, irregular, unconventional manner, were sometimes described as Mahasiddhas, but no compliment was intended. Yet another meaning is the playful or teasing remark, which is merely intended to show kindliness on the part of the Lama toward a student. There was no severity in Gyalwa Karmapa's tone or expression, so I assumed the third meaning. He then continued teaching with no reference to my escapades. Ba Yeshé, money to path of liberation bringing, many to path of liberation bringing, many who before vows are breaking. He subjugated evil influences and obstructing forces that harm the teachings. He bound the 9 demon brothers under oath, as well as their retinues, the malignant forces that wreak disaster in the world. Yongle Mingya Dorje's other Terma teachings included the peaceful and wrathful Pema Dorje and the longevity Druptab known as Tabshe Kajor. Terma of Yongle Mingya Dorje 3 volumes consisting, Karma Pakshi Druptab containing, also cycle of Dorje Trullo and all manifestations of Guru Rinpoche containing. Then Dorje Ngak'chang, black cloaked one, dwarf manifestation Mahakala. Dorje Ngak'chang, 9 robes of black silk with black embroidery wearing, copper crescent-shaped butcher's flying knife in right hand holding, skull cup with oceans of blood brimming in left hand holding. And now you everything well knowing, for tonight and tomorrow. I am feeling, 7th incarnation of Terton Mingya Dorje, already incarnation taking, maybe soon finding. At this point I was somewhat exhausted from writing, but extremely glad about the time I had spent learning the rudiments of Tibetan spelling. I had not expected the equivalent of a university degree in Nyingma history. I was profoundly grateful and wonderfully tired. However, no matter how tired I was, I would have sat there for days taking notes if Gyalwa Karmapa had continued to supply me with information. His generosity was overwhelming. Gyalwa Karmapa was silent for some moments, before continuing. Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche silent sitting at Samiling teaching. What silent sitting practicing? I practice the 4 Naujors, Rinpoche. Oh yeah, I will speak of this. 4 Naujors like formless Mahamudra. Tseitchig, same Shine. Trudral, same Latong. Rochig, same Nyime. And Gomme, same Lundrup. Now meaning explaining. Tseitchig, one-pointed meaning, mind fixed, not with thought moving. Thoughts all let go, vanishing, no trace leaving. Trudral, meaning freedom from conceptual elaboration. No distinctions, no observer, just what is there. Rochig, meaning one taste of emptiness and form. This is when Tseitchig and Trudral are one taste of same experience. Then Gomme, meaning no meditation anymore. Gom is meditation and Me is not. This is when meditation and life same. Now we together sitting. We sat together for some unaccountable time, and finally Gyalwa Karmapa smiled at me and said, Tseitchig. Trudral. Rochig. Then, with a gesture of his hand that bade me stand up and leave, he concluded, Gomme. And I stood, bowed, and left the room.